Here's another sort of thematic episode rather than one focused on a single figure. Let's talk about fictionality in Western political philosophy. I mean, I guess this is one thing that just struck me over and over again as I made this podcast. Consistently, throughout, from Plato. I mean, Aristotle might not be just a sheer constructor of fictions along these lines. Aristotle is a realist. But it strikes me that most of the entities postulated by Western political philosophy, especially the biggest, most profound ideas, are obviously fictional. Sometimes that's avowed explicitly by the philosopher. I mean, for example, the Rawls story. Okay, let's just make up myths and stuff like this, and this is how it gets started, and what if it had happened that way? Well, it didn't, of course, not at all. So, right up until right now, we tell myths as philosophies. Rawls is a beautiful example. I mean, see, I guess what really got me on this to do this is Pettit's voice of the state, which does not exist, obviously, but she doesn't care. Nobody cares, man, because the whole tone of Western political philosophy is what? Hypothetical? Sheer acts of the imagination? Sheer departures from reality? Just a set of cloudy dreams? Now, if you were just having cloudy dreams, though, it seems like you could make fewer nightmares for yourself. And each of these beautiful dreams, insofar as it is realized, is a nightmare, okay? Like a beautiful dream, but a nightmare reality. This is a consistent theme, man. It starts to play out like, let's just make some shit up and see what's up. See what happens after that, I guess. Like all these utopias, more or whatever. But anywhere where we go, imagine people in a state of nature. The state of nature is like this. Who is merely making myths? Well, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau are merely making myths. And, more or less, they're quite aware of that. You'll find these moments in Hobbes and Rousseau, or, wherever, where they go like, well, perhaps this never happened at all. I doubt this ever happened. But, still, you get something empirical, apparently, an empirical intervention from the sheer fabrication of fictions, the construction of imaginative narratives. That's what drives Western political theory, to which I could only say, no. Start again, man, with the realities. I guess I would say, of all the people we've talked about on this podcast, I would certainly admire Marx. Hobbes and Marx most in that regard. Okay, but what is the Hobbes Leviathan? Look at the frontispiece. That's something that can't exist. All of us together as a single body with a single subjectivity. Oh my God, well that's the fiction that runs through Western political philosophy. All of us together, whoever we are, not them though, whoever we are, all together as a single body, a single consciousness, a single being, a single God. Hegel's state, Hobbes's secular God. I mean, they are aware that they're making that up, right? They're too bright not to be just aware that they're trafficking in fictions, right? They're too realistic. Right? But yeah, Marx is a nice materialist. Like, let's do the data, let's have some science. Like, wow, that would be amazing. But then as soon as he starts talking about the future, it's fictional. It's dictatorship of the proletariat. What is that, man? Dictatorship of a class? Like, this is some kind of tale we're telling, or some kind of words we're spewing, or an invented being. All right? But that's not the worst example here. So, informing all of Western political theory is the construction of fictional worlds. Really, there's no distinguishing philosophy from the novel in Western political philosophy. Plato's Republic is literally a novel, a long work of narrative fiction. It has a story arc. And then the whole of the Republic is a made up thing. And it rests on this metaphor of the individual human being to the entire polis. And it makes the polis a fictional individual. All right, but I can't even enumerate the fictions. If you see back through this podcast, listen back to this podcast, you'll see me using this term all the time, like just total fiction. Sorry. Just to give a few more examples. Well, the state is an individual leviathan or god with a voice. We just made that up. It's obviously, we don't even believe it. We just say it. Philip Pettit. We say it last week, as well as in the 17th century. Okay, the nation, the state, now, or how about the secret destiny of the German people? The secret destiny of the German people. What do you make of that entity? Is that in your ontology? The secret destiny of the German people? Because Hegel likes it and Heidegger likes it too. All right, what is that? How about the Übermensch? Nietzsche's Übermensch. What is that? It's an invention. It's a fiction. It's a character. It's harmless as long as nobody starts to pretend to believe it or whatever. I do want to focus very heavily on social contract theory in this regard, even though that wasn't the primary theme of the series we got going here. The social contract theory starts with state of nature, which is a fictional state that we have invented. Okay. And then it goes on to the social contract, where we come together in the fictional state of nature and create no one does anything actually, but the fiction continues. Then we all agree to something. It never happened, right? It can't happen. It's like a pseudo history. It's a fictional tale. It's a fantasy novel. It's romantasy, except the romance is not kissy kissy. It's oppressy. That's all this fiction is dedicated to real power hierarchies. Every phase, every moment of Rousseau's social contract is fictional, and the general will that emerges. Right? Was there a Rousseauian state of nature? Is that based on history or based on research or whatever? Or is that just stipulated? Is that just invented? The whole of Rousseau's political philosophy look at it positively, as an act of imagination. But an act of imagination can sort of make a difference in reality, although not usually nudging you toward whatever you're imagining, but maybe just the opposite. But if I had words for Western philosophers, it would be, come back with us to this earth. Address the problems of real persons in a real world, and not the apparent problems of fictional people in a fictional world that you just made up. And I think that deletes Western philosophy, basically. I mean, that deletes Western political philosophy. That's how fictional it is. Like I say, quite explicit, you know. Yeah, okay, so what we got, the Secret Destiny of the German People. I like that, man. Or the whole of the Hegel or Marx narrative construction of history, beginning to end, right? Impulse to telos. We make of the whole universe, or at least the whole human world, a narrative story construction. How would you show that something like that was true? And do you care whether it's true? Is truth the goal of those mega narratives of history? They are, I say, novels. Another example that we saw of fictions, I'm looking at my little phone notes, the idea that you can have the laws of the state enforced on you because you are the lawgiver of yourself. If you were to capitulate to the laws of the state, you would be the lawgiver of yourself and thus perfectly free. All right, lawgiver of yourself, that's total fiction in this scenario. Like, we are imposing law on you with guns and prisons, and then we are inventing you as the lawgiver of yourself. So it's not just, universes, worlds, poli that are being fictionalized. It's us, right? We're becoming things that we never could be, like Ubermenschen, I guess, or whatever. All right. Well, I'm pretty comfortable, like I say, taking this to be at the essence of virtually all Western reflection on politics, man. From Plato to Rawls, okay? And Pettit and whatever. It's like, let's invent a world. And let's invent some characters for this world. Now, what happens, man, in our little Tinker Toys, with our little video game? One thing you can do with this is whatever you please. Right? I propose, I'm not serious about this, but I propose to write a novel illustrating whatever position you like. Plausibly, I guess, like doing some fantasy world creation that makes Nazism plausible. In our invented world, among the invented people of that invented world, who have things like races, who are like Aryans or, whatever, fictions we got. You can make a novel to justify anything you like. There's no constraints on the novel, okay? Except like what can get a readership or whatever. You don't have to have a consistent universe to write a sci-fi novel, though it helps, okay? And maybe no one's really going to read your fantasy novel if it's realistic. Okay? Like, you want to make that shit exciting. More exciting than reality, maybe. But we're not doing romantasy. All you historical figures of Western philosophy. Not at all. We're trying to arrange our concrete lives together. So, Western political philosophy, whenever you get ready to explicitly delete your seemingly absolute commitment to fictionality, then we can start to have a discussion about what is true. That we're all under a social contract? No, well, that's not true. Okay, but it doesn't matter that it's not true. We love these fictions, I guess. Now, let's actually talk about what's happening. For God fucking sakes, man. Like, get your head out of your ass and get your head into this world, fiction writers of Western philosophy.